Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast, presented by Fabrica 5. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo. Tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Senator, Pagoda, Grinder, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some bourbon, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 130th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a New World cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We discuss Aging Room's history and the unique story of its founder. We read some listener email, and we debate if we're experiencing a new type of cigar boom, all among a variety of other things for the next 2 hours. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair port-finished Angel's Envy Kentucky Straight Bourbon with the Aging Room Quattro Nicaragua Sonata in Maestro. A Nicaraguan torpedo tonight on the pod from the Aging Room. It's called the Quattro Nicaraguan Sonata. It's a beautiful torpedo, 52 ring gauge cigar by 6 inches long. And boys, we're back to Aging Room, and a lot of people are talking about this cigar, including some folks in this room.
Oh, yeah.
Pagoda, I know you're a big fan of the Aging Room.
Yeah, I am. And I really enjoyed it the first time I smoked it. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's a beautifully made cigar.
It is. The construction's really nice. It's not too densely packed, which I like.
Yeah, it's not heavy.
And yeah, I really like the yellow. I like the...
It's different.
It's a cool, like, bright yellow. A little different than like a Cohiba yellow. Yeah, we'll see how this thing is. Let's cut this thing, boys.
And it's got the black and gold, and yeah, looks very nice.
Cold draw on the wrapper.
Wide open.
Yeah, mine's wide open too. Excellent.
What are you getting?
Typical Nicaraguan dried fruit.
Yeah, it's got a nice little sweet note there, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Not earthy, no coffee, no leather. Very pleasant.
It's really just like a dry fig. Is really all I'm getting.
It's really quite nice.
A little cedar.
Bit, maybe.
A little bit of cedar.
I get cedar too.
All right, boys, let's light this thing. The Aging Room Quattro Nicaragua Sonata. It's the Maestro. It's a
Maestro.
52 ring gauge torpedo by 6 inches long. It's one of 7 Vitolas in the line, which we'll go through. This cigar came out last year, middle of 2023. It was celebrated at PCA 23, came out in the summer. And it's sister to the very famous orange label Quattro Nicaragua. It's not the Sonata. The orange label is the one that people would know won Cigar of the Year in 2019.
So that Quattro was one of my early New World favorites. Smoked it for 2 years before I got into Padron. It was pretty good, you know.
And we did one of those on the podcast. I don't know if we did the one that won Cigar of the Year.
We did.
We did the Espressoville.
Yeah, we didn't do the pyramid.
I think the sister cigar to this, the Maestro, in that orange line,
right,
was the one that won Cigar of the Year. We did another Vitola in that line.
I see.
Almost 100 episodes.
Now that cigar was deep and earthy, coffee, leather all day.
Yeah.
I have to say, just the presentation of this cigar, to me, this is one of the best looking Nicaraguan cigars I've probably ever seen.
Yeah, it's beautifully made.
Like the wrapper is mostly invisible seams, very smooth. It's not like as toothy as like some Padrones even or other Nicaraguan cigars that you would expect. The draw is flawless.
Yep,
it's flawless.
I'm very impressed with the construction.
The wrapper's really handsome.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about the other one, the Maestro.
Also beautifully made cigar.
Beautiful cigar, beautiful wrapper.
Great quality.
Yeah. Seamless. And you
And
can't see any seams on the wrapper.
this is quite good right off the light.
Yeah, it's pleasant on the light.
I like the flavor.
Now, Giz, if you catch the aroma, don't laugh, but I get a touch of citrus. Just a little bit.
I mean, 130 episodes in, I am not surprised.
Well, that's not true. But
This may be...
I'm so glad.
I mean, is there any cigar that you don't get citrus on?
Of course.
I'll tell you.
Listeners playing Bam Bam Bingo can mark down citrus on their card.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I get a bit of lemon in this. Like, I mean,
Thank you.
not yet, but
That's psychological from the band. I think.
I totally agree. So my friends tried it, and they obviously did not get any lemon in it at all. So it may be just because of the band, but I mean, the first couple of them, I did get a bit of lemon.
It's there.
This is
It's
one of
there.
the rare times I think that Bam has nailed the citrus note. I smoked this for the first time with Pagoda when we were in Panama.
Panama, yeah.
And I definitely got citrus.
You
and
had this?
Yeah.
Really?
I've only smoked this once before. It was
Oh,
literally
wow.
with Pagoda in Panama.
He doesn't
And
tell us nothing.
That's why we're doing this.
I've
cigar.
been.
He tells us nothing.
Thank you. At least Gizmo can back me here. I've been saying we need to review this on the pod ever since I tried it in Panama.
I bought a box of them
All
when they
right,
came
all
back from Panama, and they were both talking about how good the cigar
never
was.
heard it.
you see how he projects on us, keeping secrets. He's the one keeping secrets.
And you know,
I cannot tell a lie.
and you know, Bam likes the other yellow band, so you know.
Oh, the
this is
Zeno?
really-
The Zeno?
the Zeno.
That's Rooster's favorite. I heard.
But the thing you said, Bam, that I actually had not done is notice on the burn line how much citrus you get too.
Yeah, it's there.
It's really nice.
Yeah, the retrohale's surprisingly smooth. It's not no burn, no bitterness at all.
I think the entire cigar right now, despite it being a Nicaraguan Puro, top to bottom, I think the blend is firmly medium. I would not say it's even getting medium full or full.
Do they list this as a full?
It's a full Nicaraguan Puro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that also depends on how long you've been smoking cigars.
We
Well,
we also just lit it. So
Yeah, it's
You
very
know,
early.
yeah,
I think
that's
to
true.
make a final judgment on that.
Right.
But I do agree that it starts medium, and I mean honestly, at how firmly medium this is,
Mhm.
I could easily see this getting medium full. I don't think it's that
Yeah.
far from needing to get there.
Yeah. Very flavorful.
I just love the draw on this. You know, it's so easy.
It is.
The construction's great.
So these cigars come in boxes of 20. Like I said, it's a very yellow box with the Aging Room branding all over it. So this is made in partnership with AJ Fernandez. It's made at Tabacalera AJ Fernandez in Esteli, Nicaragua. And like I said, it's one of 7 Vitolas in the line. The Espressivo is a 50 ring gauge Robusto by 5 inches long. Vibrato is 54 by 6, a Toro. Figurado is 52 by 6.5. The Impromptu is also 52 by 6.5. I guess it's just a different shape. Maestro that we're smoking tonight is 52 by 6. The Concerto is a 50 by 7. And the Grande is a 60 ring gauge cigar by 6 inches long.
I love the names. Concerto.
Yeah, very much in line with
Maestro.
Bravo.
Prego.
That's Bam at the Tropicana show in Havana. Bravo.
Bam's
Bravo.
alter ego in Havana just yells bravo
Correct.
all the time
at the Tropicana.
at the
Oh,
Tropicana
yeah. Oh,
show.
Those are the days.
By the way, we continued the tradition the second time we went.
Correct.
Even in your absence, we all were going, bravo,
Oh,
bravo.
I'm so happy to hear that. Do we know how much this cigar is?
$12.
Oh, that's quite the value.
$12 cigar.
Great price
That's
point.
a
The combustion on this cigar is fantastic.
yeah.
It is a chimney. I
It
mean,
is.
and especially for something that comes to I would assume the point when you do a reasonable cut on it is
Yeah.
probably in the low to mid 40s ring gauge wise. It's putting out a lot of smoke
Sure.
for a torpedo.
And the other aging room did as well. I think they're all
Yeah.
very good performing cigars.
How much of AJ Fernandez influence goes into this, or is it just satisfactory?
From a blending perspective, it's all, and we'll get into the history of Aging Room, but it's all done by the owner of Aging Room. He does all the blending, and then he contracts out the manufacturing and the rolling and whatnot of all the cigars. He actually works with 3 different manufacturing hubs. One is Hochi Blanco at Tabacalera La Palma in the Dominican Republic. And then he has 2 partners in Nicaragua, Nestor Palencia Jr., obviously Palencia, and the cigar that we're smoking tonight was rolled at AJ Fernandez's factory. So
It reminds me of an Alma Fuerte.
What?
Oh boy.
I'm
Don't-
joking.
Don't even go there.
That could torpedo a rating.
no pun intended.
Nice.
This is a really good cigar.
Yeah.
I love, like you said, Bam, I love the interplay between the retrohale,
Sure.
the smell at the burn line, the normal draw. It's
Yeah.
really, everything's working.
It's just unusual how different it is from the other age room that we smoked, because I got a lot of coffee and earth note in that cigar, and this one is really very pleasant and, for me, kind of light and fruity and
Yeah,
easy
like
to smoke.
I think the other one is more Padronesque, and this one is more like, I think, Pledge of Allegiance, the
Epicurio.
Epicurio, the lemon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, that's a
in terms
great
of-
call out. Actually,
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Like for me, what I liked when I first tried this, and I'm definitely experiencing now, there's complexity to this cigar.
Mhm.
Like I think the Pledge of Allegiance, we were shocked for like a mostly Nicaraguan cigar to be getting citrus notes along with like cocoa
Yeah.
and coffee. You never really see that with Nicaraguan tobacco. And I feel like this comes close to doing that and is complex in what it delivers. That other aging room that won Cigar of the Year, whatever year that was,
Mhm.
2019.
19. For me, I thought that cigar ironically needed more aging. I just felt it was a little bit harsh, where when Pagoda gave me this, what I liked about it, it's a very smooth delivery
Yeah.
all the way through. Hopefully that is the case this time.
Mhm.
And I think the flavor profile of that other aging room is a bit more straightforward. And
But
I
much-
think this
much
is more
deeper,
complex.
Much deeper cigar.
It's a fuller cigar
Yeah,
for sure.
of course.
But I just mean in terms of the different flavor notes that you pull out,
Mhm.
it seemed more straightforward. It was just like coffee, cocoa,
Earthy.
little
For
earth.
me.
Very
Woody.
Nicaraguan, like
Woody.
what we imagine.
This, I
to
think
be.
you get some of those notes, not as
Yeah.
pronounced, but also like dried fruit and citrus, and just there's more complexity here for me.
I also think this is a much more versatile cigar because of the
I agree with you
profile.
on that.
I could do this almost any time of the day.
I agree.
But apparently, the other cigar that we're talking about, the Maestro, had aged tobacco.
Mm.
Had a lot of aged tobacco, according to.
Yeah, we talked about that, but it did not smoke like
didn't
this.
No, it didn't
No.
smoke that
And
way.
we had it quite some time in the humidor,
Yeah.
so it wasn't a high humidity situation. Just like this tonight, I've
You
had
sure?
this probably about 2 months.
You sure? Not high humidity?
It was not high humidity when we smoked that cigar.
Was it? Okay.
With beats or without.
Wow. Bam, calling into question Gizmo's vigilant.
Vigilant.
No, this was before the Vigilant.
No.
Oh, then it could. That was kitty litter days.
Correct.
Before,
Correct.
before Oasis. Before the Oasis days.
Oh man, the kitty litter.
I abstain from the kitty litter conversation.
I love it.
So the blend of this is definitely more intentional to be more medium than the orange Quattro that we smoked. That was very intentional when they made the decision to put this cigar together. I think with that reduction in strength is pointing to what Senator's saying about the complexity of the cigar. It's almost like what we talked about with Steve Saka and that interview a few weeks ago. It's, coming down in strength and oomph. It kind of lends the opportunity for there to be more complexity, more
Well,
flavor, more changes, more.
You can capture more when the cigar is less robust because it's not overpowering. So you can experience more of it because you're not pushing that smoke out so fast, because this is pleasant, so you can keep it with you more or longer, I think.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's a refined palate speaking.
Oh, yeah.
Shut off his mic, will you?
Yeah, this is very, very pleasant. I'm very happy. Honestly, when I saw that it was a Nicaraguan Puro, like the other cigar we smoked, I was anticipating, when I was reading that the blend was intentionally more mild, when I was reading about the plan for this cigar as the sister cigar to that more full orange box that we smoked 100 episodes ago, I was hesitant. I was like, I don't believe them that this is going to be a mild experience, because honestly, I think we've talked about Nicaraguan Puros. We very rarely have a Nicaraguan Puro that's firmly medium, even at this point, about 3/4 of an inch in. So it's like to have that experience, and I think we experienced that with Steve Saka. We've done that with some Padrones, but I think that this is unique and a little unique in that
I
way,
agree.
and how this is delivering its flavor.
I totally agree.
And the thing I love about this cigar, I mean, from my perspective at this point, there's not another cigar that I would like really closely compare this to and say like, this is just like X cigar. I actually feel like what they've done here is pretty unique. Like, I think the closest would be the Pledge of Allegiance that Pagoda said, but that was fuller than this. So, like, for a medium body smoke that delivers that kind of profile as smoothly as this is, I don't think there's anything else. And this is the kind of cigar that I would be very excited to give to a Cuban cigar smoker that I think would be a great entry point into New World cigars. Like, I could see anybody who enjoys a medium-bodied Cuban cigar also loving this, which is not the case for most. I wouldn't say that for most Nicaraguan puros.
Absolutely.
That's true. Now, that's what it's previewing like now. Let's wait another 2 inches and see what it's like.
1 inch at a time, buddy. 1 inch at a time.
So, what do you think, Grinder? You like this?
I love it. I think it's definitely a lot softer than the expectations for a Nicaraguan puro. The citrus comment blew me away because I couldn't actually pinpoint it, and when you said it, I kind of giggled. But there's definitely that tangy citrus note.
He's the boy who cried citrus. Okay,
He's the boy.
When he hits a home run with it, it's it's not every episode when he says citrus.
I'm not gloating, am I? I am not gloating.
I think it was Senator who mentioned the construction is beautiful. It in the hand, it's very nice to hold in the hand. The burn line is perfect. The aroma is fantastic. I kind of get this like nutty flavor. It's hard to pinpoint. It's like a very nutty, and a little, I don't know, citrus nut, like a salty nut, and definitely get the mild flavor for the Cuban that you guys reference as well. But I was struggling for a while there to actually equate it to something I'm familiar with, and I think it was Senator who also said that he can't compare it. I'm not. This is incomparable to me right now, and that's in a positive way.
Yeah,
it's a huge merit. Honestly, the cigars I get most excited about are cigars that I can't compare to anything else.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, they've done something unique. That's going to leave an imprint on me. I'm going to remember that cigar. I'm going to pursue that cigar. And so far, this is memorable.
And I've been retrohaling the whole time.
Same here.
And I haven't gotten like
no bitterness there.
No bitterness.
Yeah.
It's not harsh.
No.
It's full flavor. I'm not getting, like, sometimes when I retrohale and the cigar is too harsh, I'll have to sneeze or something. Haven't had that.
The smoke is very rich.
Yeah.
Right. If you smell the foot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very rich smoke.
It's velvety, right? Smoke as well.
There's a milk chocolate thing that happens on the retrohale that doesn't happen on the normal draw. That is kind of rounding out the entire flavor profile to me. Like, it's adding another level of complexity.
Maybe a hint of cocoa on the end of that retro. That's where I'm getting a little bit of cocoa.
I get a little, and I noticed this when I first took a draw. It was a little oily on the tip of or on the wrapper, which is I think
Same here.
I think that's a good thing. I don't know if you guys,
Yeah.
And I don't know if that adds any different kind of flavor or what that's derivative of, but certainly a merit here.
So I think the cigar does transition a little bit in the sense that when you mentioned getting milk chocolate on the retrohale, I think once you're about a quarter of an inch into the cigar, you start getting some of those cocoa notes, which I really like.
Yeah.
Just starting to get that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the aroma at the burn line is actually changing now a little bit, actually even better than on the light.
The citrus has evaporated for me on the foot. I'm still getting that in the retrohale and cocoa finish on that, but it's still presenting a fruit forward experience for me on the draw.
Definitely fruit forward, and it's a light finish though. It kind of quickly evaporates. I'm not getting.
I don't think it's in an unpleasant way. I think
it's a pretty fast short finish. Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Medium finish.
I think a medium finish.
Yeah, I mean that, and it's not like peppery. Sometimes you get those harsh Nicaraguans. It's a very pleasant feeling. It's kind of creamy.
It's a clean finish.
Clean finish. Yeah, that's
good. Honestly, I hope we don't get a pepper on this at all. That pepper note. I would be disappointed if that happens here.
The wildest thing listening to our conversation on this. This is a $12 cigar.
Yeah,
dude, I was just about to go there.
Look at how many notes we've already pulled out. We're not even finished with the first third of the cigar.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
I also think we've really developed an appreciation for New Worlds because we have so many listeners who are great, Cuban enthusiasts, but our passion, like we are really digging deep into
Mm.
these brands that are, new world cigars, and really appreciating them in ways that we maybe not have appreciated for, based off our Cuban experience.
Can't smoke a $50 Cuban every day.
No, yeah,
no, you
that's
can't.
right.
No, and I think it's good that they're innovating. I mean, my first experience with Aging Room was probably like
Mhm.
all, if not most of us, having the
That's
version
exactly.
of this that won Cigar of the Year.
That's right.
And I just didn't like, I love I remember the construction being great like this. It was a handsome cigar. There was a lot of reasons I wanted to try it. And that cigar being so close in what it's trying to deliver to a Padron. And I'm sitting there saying, for the same price, I'm going to pick up a Padron. This carving out, and, Gizmo mentioned, I didn't even know when this came out, just last year.
Yeah.
Them doing something different
Yeah.
that isn't like anything else out there. Like, that's made me more excited now about this
Yeah.
brand. And I'm amazed they actually make a lot more cigars than I realized. So I would love to try,
Oh,
plenty more
absolutely.
of what they're doing.
Yeah. This is definitely a departure from that cigar that we had. No doubt about it. And I'm curious, like he said, what are the other cigars like?
Yeah, it's
Do
a
we
good
know?
question.
Does anyone know?
Well, I'll say this. I saw a little, I was just watching a video with the founder. Well, actually, I've been watching a lot of stuff that the founders put out.
I
Rafael Nadal.
started following him too.
I mean,
Oh, that's right.
Dude,
This is
so
yeah.
this guy
posts are pretty
is
nice.
basically like my spirit animal. This guy, if you go on his Instagram, he's got photos of caviar, champagne, wine with cigars, great meals. Everything I love in life as a treat, this man appreciates.
It's
So
true.
his social media has been very fun for me to dive into. But on there, I was just watching him talk a little bit about kind of his philosophy, and I was impressed that there seems to be a real range of what he makes in terms of like some mild stuff, medium, and then full stuff like we're familiar with the other version of this. And even in the mild stuff that he produces, which is just a little portion of it, he was saying that like his goal is even for the mild smoker for there to be flavor. And like this is firmly medium, but there's a lot of flavor here.
And
There-
complexity.
Right.
Yeah.
There are many mediums, New World cigars that we've tried that don't actually have enough flavor. And we sit there saying, I wish this were medium full, delivering more. I don't think any of us are saying that we're lacking flavor or we need more. Like this has a lot for a medium bodied cigar. So I'd even be curious to try, like for a morning smoke, some of the mild stuff they make, because his philosophy, kind of like I was intrigued when we talked to Steve Saka, is like even for the mild smoker, it shouldn't be flavorless. There should be something that leaves that brings you back to that cigar. So I'd be curious to try a lot of their other stuff.
I think that's an interesting point too, and I think we're all kind of touching on it, the uniqueness of a cigar and how we have really come to celebrate that here, because every week we're smoking a different cigar, Cuban or New World, like tonight. And when we find something that's unique and might find a place in our rotation or might slot in where something else can slot, it's like that is so much more rewarding to me and for our experience here than finding a cigar that's trying to be a Padron, trying to be a Fuente, or trying to do something in an imitation from an imitation standpoint. Where when you find a cigar like this that's really standing on its own,
Yeah, there aren't many cigars like this that
You know,
stand on their own.
and we
Like-
found a few gems.
Like the Sin Compromiso, that is
Yeah.
quite a unique cigar.
And the
that-
other one
that
we
leaves
did
an
at
imprint.
the other one we did at PCA too, the Ipicarillo Allegiance.
Yep.
That was
the
very
sidekick.
good. Very good.
I think that, especially from a pricing standpoint, it's a regular production cigar. That's kind of in my mind. Not
and they're
that
so
it's similar.
unique. They're so unique.
They're unique, and to me, they would slot in similar places.
Mm,
This cigar and that Ipicarillo we did a few weeks ago in the PCA episode.
yeah,
So
correct.
I don't know. I think that this is a good showing tonight so far from Aging Room.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the history of Aging Room. I know there's a lot of history there, and Rafael Nadal, as Senator mentioned, has an interesting life and has had an interesting life, starting, of course, in Cuba.
Yeah, I mean he's Cuban himself, and the funny thing about the story is most of what you see online talks about kind of from 2011 to the present when he bought the company and took over. But there is a history to it before him, and so I thought it's just helpful to kind of start there. The company itself was first established in the 90s, in 1996, as the Habana Cuba Cigar Company in Miami Lakes, Florida. And their intention was the brand was going to ship to the U.S. as the non-Cuban alternative to the Cuban Oliveros brand. their timing was horrible because there was kind of the cigar boom in the early 90s, and it was actually starting to taper off. So demand was not conducive to this really working well. So they had some really bad financial trouble. They then repositioned the company, even renamed it Boutique Blends, became the new name. And then in 2011, that's when Rafael Nadal bought Boutique Blends. And the reason he had changed the name to Aging Room, I was watching an interview with him. He said that a lot of people would come in to visit at the factory, and they would say, "I want something from your aging room." And he'd pull out a cigar that had some age with some aged tobacco, and that kind of became the thrust behind him naming the brand going forward, Aging Room. The first series that they put out, which I'm just because I'm so happy with this cigar already, I really want to work through their line. It was called the M356 series. Was kind of the first big hit that they had, and then after that, they've put out a ton of other different types of cigars. And I think they play with tobacco from a lot of different places, which is kind of cool. A lot of their stuff's made in the Dominican, also Nicaraguan, and then they blend in stuff from really all over. I saw like Sumatra wrappers from Indonesia, and just I think it's fun brands that are willing to explore. And I think some of the best stuff that we found in the New World space. I mean, we talked about the Pledge of Allegiance that had American tobacco even inside that.
America.
Didn't he start out with some flavored cigars?
That was part of when he bought it,
Right.
part of the line that existed. And then when he took over, he cut out all the flavored stuff, said, "We're only going to make money, and this business can only succeed by focusing on premium hand-rolled cigars." And so he fundamentally shifted kind of the whole operation and their business strategy, and really to appeal to, I think, lizards like us and our listeners, and not, the person that's maybe trying a cigar for the first time or occasionally and wants some flavored thing to make it a little more palatable for them.
Smart.
Yeah, apparently the cigar that we were talking about earlier with the orange band, that cigar had the Sumatra wrapper.
Oh, really?
And the tobacco in that, I mean, he says it's aged, but it's also from, not only is it it's all Nicaraguan tobacco, but it was one of the few cigars where the tobacco is grown only in Esteli. It's just from one region, not like, other regions of Nicaragua, but all of it came from Esteli.
That's great.
Yeah. And that was the cigar of the year in 2019. So he's got like, I think maybe 2 or 3 cigars that have won.
They have,
right?
and highly rated. Yeah.
They've done very well. Yeah. So the cigar we were talking about got number 1 in 2019, had a 96 rating.
That's the Maestro.
Which is very, very high.
Right.
Well, the Maestro, the sister, identical Vitola to this, under the Aging Room Nicaragua Quattro.
Mm-hmm.
We're smoking the Nicaragua Quattro Sonata tonight.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
How big is his catalog? And are the Vitolas similar in dimension?
So right now, it looks like they only have 2 cigars in regular production.
Wow.
The orange and the yellow.
Wow.
So that is it. They have the Aging Room Quattro Nicaragua Sonata and the Aging Room Quattro Nicaragua.
Wow, that's surprising to hear.
That's what they have.
I got to tell you that for all New World smokers who I've come across, they all have tried and enjoyed the Aging Room, the Quattro.
Yeah, he's doing something right. He's got great marketing, great product. But he's building a business, clearly, if he's only got two sticks, right?
Well, I think what happens is he's had a lot of success since 2011. I mean, the first year he released a cigar, he was number 16, got a 94 rating. 6 years later, number 15 in 2017, 93. Then in 2016, the year before that, a number 14.
Wow.
He had a number 2 in 2013, and then the number 1 cigar of the year in 2019. So since he's been in business, which is only 14 or 15 years now since he's owned this, he's placed in the top 25 5 times.
And only
in
2
Cigar
cigars?
Aficionado.
That's all he has?
I think because he's a contractor, that he's going to these factories and purchasing allotment, purchasing, rolling space, rolling time. I think they're probably making certain quantities, and then once it's gone, and then he moves on to the next
What's
thing.
cool is that he handles his own blending.
He does.
And that's something to say. That's really impressive.
But they're all made at the AJ Fernandez factory, right?
Currently, yes.
Yeah.
But he does have other partners, as I mentioned earlier.
Well, he started off with Perdomo, I think, was his initial partner, or not partner, but maybe that's what.
I think he's done
story.
some stuff with Plasencia as well. So
Yeah, Nestor.
Yeah, I mean his
Yeah.
Nicaraguan cigars are made by AJ Fernandez in Nicaragua, but his Dominican cigars in the past, because he had lines that were all Dominican tobacco or majority Dominican tobacco, that was made by Hochi Blanco in the Dominican.
And he also, like I said, he earlier he worked with Plasencia at one
Yeah,
point in
that's
Nicaragua.
right,
So
yeah.
he's had 3 partners so far in the 2 countries. So
Nice
we'll see what's next for him.
Nice trajectory.
You know, interesting too, he came over in 1980 as a Cuban refugee on the Mariel boat lift, which I guess was quite a journey. Senator, how long did he say it took him to come over on the boat?
12 hours.
12 hours
Yikes.
to come from Cuba
Oh,
to Miami on the boat. And you saw a cool story when he arrived in Miami.
Yeah,
The first thing that his family did.
He arrived in Miami with his father, and I'm not sure who else was there. But the first thing he had was a Coca-Cola and an apple. He had never seen those 2 items before.
amazing.
There's no apples. There were no apples in
Yeah,
Cuba.
They're not grown
Can you
there.
imagine that growing up and
Incredible.
you have not seen the most common fruit, an apple?
Yeah,
So he's like, he still drinks Coca-Cola.
that's Cuba.
Yeah.
Cuba being Cuba.
So he came here as a refugee, went to New York City, tried to become a musician and have a successful music career. Then went back to Miami and worked in healthcare. That was his professional life. Fell in love with cigars, and then I guess with the bounty he made in his healthcare life, his healthcare profession, he was able to purchase Aging Room, and now that's his profession.
His
Cool.
wife was also actually instrumental in him being able to purchase Aging Room. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what his wife's
Well,
story is,
she's
but
she's a partner in the company.
yeah, she's
I think she's a
definitely got some
lawyer,
wealth
yeah.
and was able to.
With Hank, somebody named Hank.
Hank Bischoff,
Hank Bischoff.
and his
yeah.
wife is Dr. Alina
Oh, she's a doctor.
Cordovas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
All
She's a
right.
psychiatrist. So
There you go.
So she was hired as a medical director in his not his company, the company that he worked for, and then he later married Alina, and she's a partner in the company,
That's great.
and she's Cuban as well.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
I was about to ask Abuelo, didn't you come around the 80s as well? What boat did you take?
What boat did you take?
All right, I'm just.
That boat was a little bigger than the Mariel.
Yeah.
From India, it takes a little more than 12 hours.
You may have to take him behind the building tonight.
He knows what's coming.
Oh yeah.
Well, the summer's here. Oh my lord.
Oh my lord. Getting a lot of cocoa right now.
Yeah, me too.
That transition was pretty strong. Not in a bad way. But
No,
it
it's
just-
a very
yeah.
light cocoa, especially on the retrohale, but even just the simple draw, you're getting it on the finish for me.
I just feel it's so elegant. Like
it is.
It
dude.
is.
A
That's a
cigar-
great word for it.
Yeah, it's like a cigar that has a kind of light, smooth, soft delivery, but yet is so flavorful. To me, is like the epitome of an elegant cigar.
Agreed.
You know what's
Agreed.
interesting too about you saying elegant? I'm finding that I don't know if it's the flavor profile, the complexity, or just how it's hitting my palate. I'm finding myself very relaxed in smoking it tonight, and I'm not rushing to continue drawing on it to keep pulling more flavor
Mhm.
into my palate. Like
It's pretty satisfying.
it's satisfying,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm not like intentionally smoking slower. Like
Mhm.
I feel like I'm just moving at a good pace. Whereas I think with some other Nicaraguas that we've smoked, namely as a good example is the Oliva V Lancero,
oh,
is a cigar that like I just try to get
blow
through that as
'Cause it's so
fast as
good.
I can.
'Cause
It's
so
great,
good.
but it's a little bit different of an
Yeah.
experience than what I'm having tonight with this torpedo.
Oh yeah.
I'm just glad if you knew how many Havana clubs we were in Panama at the point at which I said we need to do this at the pod. I'm glad that somehow my taste buds were still working at that point.
The other thing I found really interesting too about Aging Room, and I don't know if it's a distribution relationship, if it's a marketing partnership, or if they have a percentage ownership of the brand, but Aging Room is an Altadis brand.
Really? I didn't know
So
that.
when you look at Aging Room's website, it's on Altadis's website.
Wow.
Like it's not a standalone thing,
So they don't own it. The distribution is
Distribution.
run by Altadis.
which makes a lot of sense because to get into so many brick and mortar stores,
It's a smart move.
you need to have
Smart.
distribution.
That's
it's like
similar
any
to
business.
similar relationship Hoy de Nicaragua has with Drew Estate,
Mhm.
right? So he doesn't own that brand, but he distributes it.
Which is very smart. I mean, a lot of manufacturers go it alone, and it's very difficult to, think about how many brick and mortar shops there are and how much of a staff you would need to have. Even Steve Sacco was talking about that.
Why?
That
why
he doesn't have
why
sales
recreate the
staff.
wheel when you don't have to?
Exactly. Now
Yeah.
you're giving up a little bit of a piece of the business, of course,
Mm.
but every shop I go in, I see aging room.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
I see that orange box in
They're
almost every
everywhere.
shop I go in.
Very impressive.
So let's talk about our pairing tonight here, boys. We are back to Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy bourbon. We did the Angel's Envy rye quite some time ago, almost 100 episodes ago.
Delicious.
And we have the traditional bourbon, I guess, finished in port wine or something. Is that correct?
Yes,
Sam?
Yes,
they-
in the
they
wine.
take it and put it in the wine. It's port
It's blended.
barrels.
So let's try this thing.
Oh, wait, let me try 1 second.
So I'm drinking mine neat. That's the first sip I took since we poured it. I took one very quickly. It was
What
a
do you
little
think?
hot. I think since it sat here for almost 40 minutes,
Fine.
I think it's really, really cooled off in heat. And
Yeah.
I have no ice in it. I think this is a nice pairing for this cigar,
Mm.
flavor profile.
I'm surprised at how much I like it.
Me
Because
too.
I
Me too.
definitely I usually don't, you guys know, I don't especially like bourbon too much.
No.
And I don't like port too much, but this is very subtle, a lot of flavor. I do think it pairs nicely, and it provides like a very silky palate with the cigar.
I completely agree. I mean, I think neat this drinks really well. To me, it's actually not very hot. I had tried after having it neat a little bit of ice in it, and I actually think the ice ruined it. It got a bit aggressive for me. So I dumped that out and just re-poured it. And I have another neat pour here. I actually think it's very easy drinking. I think like Grinder said, like the flavor of it, it's not like an overpowering sweet bourbon like some can be. You don't taste, I'm not sure what the proof is. I'm kind of curious.
45?
43.3. So it's above 40%.
Yeah.
You don't really feel that. I would have guessed it's 40.
I think I felt it was a little hot when I first poured it before we hit record. I just took a quick sip.
I did as well.
And I felt as it sat here and just kind of opened up a little bit, that went away. And now I'm agreeing with you. But when I first, sipped it, it needed some time.
So I
When
did
it opened up, I think a lot of the alcohol evaporated, and that's
Sure.
called the angel's share, right?
Oh, this,
I mean, that's how
we
that's
got
how,
we got
that's how
the
you get
rare
name.
form of pagoda tonight, boys.
No, but that's how the name came about, Angel's Envy.
Yeah, because of the angel share, which is 5%, I guess, as it's being distilled
Yeah, it kind of
and aged, and 5% evaporates off, and they call that the angel share.
correct.
I'm impressed, Pagoda.
Not as it's distilled, but as it's
As
in
it's-
the bottle.
I think Pagoda's been reading a lot of propaganda from the manufacturer.
But in all seriousness, the nose, again very surprised how palatable the nose is. It's kind of like it doesn't waft in my nostrils like horseradish. It's very subtle again, very flavor. You can kind of get some caramel. The sweetness is still there, but
It's
not
sweet.
to your point, not overpowering. It's really pleasant.
I'm getting I get a slight floral kind of fruit finish on this thing as it goes down.
I agree.
It's pleasant. It's different. It's pretty unique.
I think the uniqueness of the bourbon,
A little floral for me on the end.
I think the flavor profile of the bourbon actually is aligning very nicely with the unique flavor profile and what I think is still a medium flavor profile of this cigar. And I think that when I picked up and kind of threw out there, let's do Angel's Envy tonight because we had it in the lineup to review. Let's do it with this Nicaraguan Puro, expecting what we had in the orange label Quattro from Aging Room quite some time ago. I was thinking, okay, let's get a bourbon in here that's going to have a little bit of heat to it. It's going to match nicely with this Nicaraguan Puro. Ends up, we have a cigar that's more medium than we expected.
Yeah.
And we're drinking a bourbon with it that is a little bit lighter in body, I think,
And
than what I was expecting.
And some slight similarity in notes, I think blends nicely together. I do think a rum would go great with this cigar.
I think
it'd be
a lot
quite
would go great with
I
this
think
cigar.
like an Oban 14 would be great. Maybe the
That's not
Macallan
a-
12.
That's not a rum, but
No, a Scotch. I'm going Scotch now, of course. A rum, a Scotch, I think would be great with this cigar.
oh yeah, cognac too. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
the funny thing with Angel's Envy. So I think Grinder and I have talked about this before. I don't think either of us have ever really been a fan of Angel's Envy. And I'm realizing maybe the reason, to me, this is actually, it's a pretty good sipping bourbon because it's not super hot or aggressive and there's complexity in the flavor profile. It's not like dominated by a certain one particular note or flavor. I think that the majority of times I've probably had this, it's been like mixed in a cocktail. It's like, what bourbon do you want in your Manhattan or your old fashioned or whatever? And someone at the table says Angel's Envy. And then I have it. And my experience with this with ice was not good. And I think that it just totally changes what this experience is like in a way that I don't enjoy. So for so many years, I've never had a good impression of Angel's Envy, I think for that reason. But now being able to enjoy this neat with a cigar, I would drink this again. It's actually good.
I did drop a few cubes after I took the first 2 sips, and it did get a little hotter unusually.
Let the listener note.
But
Senator is drinking without ice. Bam
Correct.
Bam is drinking with ice.
yes, this is an unusual anomaly tonight, guys. But it has dissipated and it's settled in nicely, so I am enjoying it.
You know what's really interesting is on the website, the first thing that comes out is a Manhattan,
Yeah.
right? And
Interesting.
so they I think they're
I would not mix this
marketing
with a cocktail.
themselves as a
I would not have this with any cocktail for me. Never.
It's interesting that the focus in terms of marketing is slightly different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good sipping bourbon.
And the price point is
Yeah. How much is this? Do you know?
decently substantial.
Yeah, it's $50.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We paid $50 for this bottle.
That's very affordable.
I mean, a lot of mixing bourbons you can find for like 30 something dollars, at most $40. So
Yep.
at 50 something bucks for this, like that's what a sipping spirit should command.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that's what this is.
Nice.
So it's aged 4 to 6 years in new American white oak barrels. And then, like we talked about, it's finished for 6 additional months in port casks.
Someone told me in port wine. Are you sure?
Well,
Maybe
they
that's why we
blended
like
with
it
the
so
wine,
much.
and somehow they extracted out of that wine.
They do market themselves as a mixer bourbon.
They do.
Yeah.
And what I found this interesting too, I don't know much about this, so this might be standard, but the port casks are imported from the Douro region of Portugal, which is pretty cool. So let's talk about the tasting notes. I always love going through tasting notes from our liquor pairings. This is straight from their website, which, by the way, is probably the worst website I've ever been on. I can't stand it. It says
Will you just hack it and redo the site?
I might email them. Tasting notes: with a gold color laced with reddish amber hues, nearly copper in tone. Our bourbon is finished in port wine barrels, which add subtly distinct flavor nuances that enhance the whiskey without challenging it. On the nose, subtle vanilla, raisins, maple syrup, and toasted nuts. On the palate, vanilla, ripe fruit, maple syrup, toast, and bitter chocolate. And then they say the finish is clean and lingering sweetness with a hint of Madeira.
Madeira.
Never heard of that.
Madeira.
I've never heard of Madeira.
And do we know what that is?
It's
'Cause I
no
don't.
idea.
It's a wine.
It's
Madeira
a
wine.
Yeah. It's a
Maybe that's
Portu-
what they mix it with.
It's a Portuguese wine.
Looks like it would go well with pancakes.
It would.
I don't think most of those notes are crazy.
Yeah.
I think most of the tasting
Pretty
notes
accurate,
you
I
do get.
guess. Yeah.
So they also have a version of this bourbon that is finished in rum casks. So they have a port finish and a rum finish. So maybe that's something that we should try with, another cigar down the road, is do the rum finish and compare it to this port finished bourbon that we're drinking tonight.
I think that's maybe why it's different for me from like a typical port, finish, because it's specifically Madeira, and that's a very unique kind of port.
I don't think I've ever had port
Yeah.
Really?
wine. I don't
Really?
think I've ever had it.
In fairness, you haven't had a lot of things.
I do have a sport coat now. So Madeira,
Correct.
Madeira,
Madeira.
Madeira is on the list
Yes.
as of tonight.
I don't think you'll like it. I'm just from what I can tell.
He's gotten more into wine recently.
Yeah.
So
I
I
have.
feel like in the right setting with the right port, because there's a lot of shitty port that's
Yeah, there is.
really, really too sweet. But with the right port, maybe Gizmo could appreciate it.
These guys, I think, they put them in ruby port barrels as opposed to tawny port. Yeah. And the difference, I guess, is the color.
No, I mean, it's the flavor. So ruby port is sweeter port. Tawny port is a bit drier, and it's like kind of like a nuttier finish, not as like much of a berry finish that you would get on a ruby port. So I prefer tawny port. Most ruby port
Yeah.
for me is just way too sweet. But to finish something like this, you're trying to just extract like
that
the
much flavor. Yeah,
exactly. So that would
It
make
kind of
sense.
works. Yeah.
Apparently, the most prevalent drink of the American colonialists, port wine.
So let me ask you a question about port wine because I have no idea about it. Is that something that you're getting that after dinner drink
Yes.
After
menu
dinner,
and you're
yes.
ordering it? I'm asking you guys, do you
Yes.
do this?
So
After
I'll
dinner.
say this. I knew nothing about port until I was in college, and one of my best friends went to Portugal on a trip and drank a ton of port and told me how great it was, and I knew nothing. He bought some bottles that he brought back, and I was pleasantly surprised. Now, the thing with port, you can drink that in very small quantities. I mean,
Mhm.
it's even tawny port. It's sweet.
It's sweet, man.
It's like a dessert.
It's a good after dinner drink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not something you can drink in volume. But we should do a port on the pod.
we
That
should.
would be
It's
cool.
actually
Yeah.
quite nice with a cigar.
Would it be? I don't know. I do have the grams. I think the brand Gram
yeah.
Sport. Yeah, the tawny.
Nice.
It's pretty good.
I
yeah.
think with like a full-bodied Nicaraguan cigar, because a port, it's like it's like concentrated wine,
It's thick.
basically.
It's like thick, right?
Viscous.
Maybe when we get
Viscous is the
that
word. Yeah.
85th or 85 year Padron, we'll smoke it with that. Yeah.
That's not a bad idea, Bam.
If we ever get that.
So let's talk about the history of Angel's Envy. I know we probably touched on this quite some time ago. It's almost 100 episodes now. But obviously it was founded in Louisville, Kentucky by Bourbon Hall of Fame member and master distiller Lincoln Henderson and his son Wes Henderson. And I guess they made their name by maturing their whiskey in charred oak barrels, which is something that, Pagoda, you were talking about being an interesting part of their history. And then they transfer it to secondary finishing casks, obviously creating what they think is a distinct blend of refined complexity. As we talked about during the aging process, 5% of the spirit lost each year is known as the Angel's Share. After tasting their finished whiskey, the founder Lincoln joked that they had finally struck a better deal than the Angels, and so Angel's Envy was born. And that has been their motto and ethos
Cool.
since their founding. And now they have a pretty damn popular bourbon out there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's performing well tonight.
Pagoda needs to say something.
Yeah, no, I do. Because you brought about the charred oak barrels. You know, it's a legal requirement for a bourbon that it needs to be in a charred barrel. And I think Angel's Envy uses new barrels, and they talk a little bit about charring on the website. So if you're a listener, I really found this very interesting that they'll take these new barrels and there are different types of levels for charring, and they'll do about 15 seconds or 30 seconds. So it's not even that much. But apparently when they will char these barrels, the wood after burning has some chemical reactions which actually provides the flavors. In fact, in one of the episodes you talked about experiencing this coconut flavor for a bourbon. I don't know, it's one of the past.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember this.
Yeah,
Because I
and-
was getting the coconut note, and he read that.
Did
That
I
was
say
one of the
that?
notes, and I was
Yeah.
like, shoot, I wanted
Yeah.
to call that out.
Take the credit, Bam.
Correct.
No, but it's really a result of the charring.
Yeah.
It's one of the levels where you char
Mm.
that you do get a little bit of the coconut flavor. So it's really interesting that when all these processes do matter so much in terms of what the final product is. Yeah,
Cool.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
It is amazing to me too, when you talk about, obviously they manufacture a lot of bourbon, right? They're probably one of the biggest out there right now. Of course, aside from the standard, bourbons that we all know, but they're making a lot of bourbon. So
They're in every bar.
every bar,
Mm-hmm.
every single bar. And to make something that is so consistent and you're constantly refining and
very affordable.
tweaking the product and making it that in a price point that's affordable. I think
Yeah.
$50, like we said, is a little high on the kind of bar bourbons, right? I mean,
if you're a fan of that, that's a great price.
It's a younger brand, right? But
Yeah.
but the guy, he's been around a while. He's like a master blender. He's in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. Lincoln, he blended Woodford Reserve and Gentleman Jack. He's
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
yeah, he knows his stuff.
That Gentleman Jack is something that is worth trying. I've
Yeah,
had
we
it.
haven't done that.
Very nice and smooth.
We all like the Woodford Reserve.
It's nice.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice grinder. It's
Oh,
nice.
yeah. The other thing, the bottle.
Don't laugh.
It's
I
a unique shape.
it's so iconic. I just feel like it's any bar you'll always spot a bottle of Angel's Envy, and I like that they did something very unique from most bourbon bottles.
It's a box press torpedo, like our cigar.
It's like a Figurado, actually.
It's just like the cigar we're smoking.
It's a nice presentation.
Yeah. So, boys, we're past the halfway point here on the aging room Quattro Nicaragua Sonata in Maestro. What do you guys think?
I think the amount of smoke in the room is a testament to the combustion and performance of this thing, man. It's quite the chimney.
I love this cigar.
I do
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this cigar right now.
Yeah.
I think the last third, like just a notch, picks up a bit in flavor,
Sure.
just a little bit in strength,
Mhm.
but
it's not overwhelming.
No, not
Still
even
very
close.
smooth.
And
that's a mark of an elegant cigar.
Yeah, I almost feel like the draw is too open.
It is
I
open.
like a little bit of resistance on
Resistance.
the draw.
Yeah.
Slight.
Agreed.
It's very open.
I wonder if that is a product of the American smoker expecting a wide open draw in their cigar. Because you do talk about I've talked to Cuban rollers who even when they leave Cuba they really want some resistance in the draw. They think it affects the flavor. Obviously it affects the combustion and probably the flavor. But the New World smoker, I think, when you sit in a lounge, if you're not a chimney, if you're not getting if you're experiencing something that has a little bit of a tight draw, I think that's a little bit of a turnoff to someone who's smoking only New World cigars. Do you guys disagree with that?
I don't know. I kind of agree. I do think that after smoking a couple of cigars with a reasonable resistance, you have one of these that feels so good. It's just fantastic. And then if you're outdoors or if you're on your deck, I think cigars like these perform really well.
Sounds like a true American smoker.
I am. Remember, I'm the New World guy.
Correct.
I for some reason, I just think that box press New World cigars tend to have a more open draw. That's just been my experience. Like I even think of brands like EP Carrillo. They do a ton of box press stuff. The draw on 90+% of EP Carrillos I've had, very open, very effortless, very easy to smoke. Padron, obviously, all the draws wide open. And I think that's what I get on this and even on the other Orange Band one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that's the case, but anytime I pick up a box press cigar, I'm expecting a pretty wide open draw.
Mhm.
And I actually like that. I mean, the amount of effort that sometimes it takes with certain Cuban cigars, I like when I can actually sit back and just appreciate the cigar and I'm not fighting just to get smoke or combustion.
Yeah.
Rafael Nadal, I saw a video of his talking to somebody, and he mentioned when he rolls a cigar, when the cigar is round, the movement of air is different than when it's a box pressed cigar.
Hmm.
Like the air is kind of moving in waves.
When it's round.
No, when it's box pressed.
I see.
Which, I mean, I don't know
wow.
what the science is behind that, but it's a different airflow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of skill and diligence to roll a cigar with that kind of airflow that it's open, and you have to know what you're doing. And not that most rollers don't know what they're doing when they have a tighter draw, but you have to have intention to kind of create and fold the leaves. I think from what I've seen to make that kind of draw, and I think it's just having good rollers and for a certain market maybe as well because the popularity of a Padron that's so open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, Grinder, I think that there's also something to be said about the quality of this roll because it wasn't a cigar when we lit it. I mean, I looked at all the feet of these cigars. There is a good amount of tobacco in the cigar.
Mm.
So to have that kind of, the amount of tobacco that's in the cigar, to have this wide open draw in the box presses we're talking about, it definitely takes skill. I mean,
Yeah.
they're definitely doing a lot of QC to make sure that these cigars are properly drawing.
Getting back to the uptick in flavor or body in this thing, that's true, and it's very elegantly occurring. The retrohale, for me, has gotten smoother. It's really effortless for me now. Where early on, there was a little bit of just a tight bitterness there, just a touch. But now I'm really enjoying the retrohale. It's unusual at this stage of the game.
I agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't had a moment of bitterness or weirdness on any aspect of it.
Mhm.
I think the thing that's improved for me, I mean, the cigar has improved as we've gone. I think when we lit it, it was excellent. I think now it's
It's
excellent.
excellent.
I don't think it's moved to full. I still think it's medium full,
Agreed.
but through the nose and the retrohale, it's always been super smooth for
Quite
me, and it's
nice.
adding a lot to
Oh,
the
yeah.
cigar for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, are you guys experiencing any black pepper in the retrohale?
I am.
Because
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
So
Not at all.
actually not on the retrohale, on the finish.
Just in the finish.
Yeah.
No,
But it's
honestly,
not a
very-
lot.
yeah.
I'm glad I'm not, because it would disappoint me if I get that note here in this cigar. For me, I'm not seeing that at all.
But it's new. It's just, I have what, an inch and a half, I guess,
It's a
left.
touch. I would say a touch of
Yeah,
pepper.
just a touch.
Just a
Yeah.
very,
Yeah, very,
faint,
very, very
which
light,
is
yeah.
fine. Yeah. I kind of like pepper every once in a while, like
I like a little bit
A
at
little
the right
bit.
moments.
Yeah.
I hate when I light a cigar, especially like I said, Nicaraguan puros scare me a little bit when we're doing a full Nicaraguan puro, because it's like, what is this thing going to be like? And to not have a pepper bomb on a Nicaraguan puro like that in and of itself is something to celebrate,
Yeah.
because so many Nicaraguan puros,
That's true.
they're pure pepper bombs, and that doesn't work. at
And
all.
that's where the blending is so important, and the
Yeah.
fact that the guy who started this brand is the master blender
It's
for this
incredible.
brand. He clearly knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kudos to him.
I mean, the citrus has completely dissipated.
Mm.
It was
Oh, yeah.
just kind of in the
In
first
the
third.
beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have that citrus note like all the way through. Like, you really enjoy that.
You should send
That's
an
the
email.
pledge.
I'll say this: I like the transition of
yeah,
this.
I do too.
I just
Oh,
say
yeah.
that because obviously anyone who's listened to this pod has heard me say, I'm fine with a cigar that's consistent all the way through. It doesn't have to transition to be a great cigar for me. I don't think Padrones transition a whole lot like the Exclusivo, and I love that cigar. But I do like with this cigar that it started firmly medium, nowhere near full or even medium full, and you were getting more of those berry and citrus notes. And then kind of midway through, you were getting more of the cocoa
Correct.
mixed in with still just a faint bit of those berry and citrus notes. And then I like that in the last third, that's dissipated. And now you're just getting cocoa and nuts and some earthiness and a little bit of spice. And it's picked up just a bit in strength.
But
I like that kind of 3-act
still
play.
very, very smooth.
Oh,
So
for sure.
That's
Would-
what's
would you-
unique about this.
Would you say it's medium plus?
Oh, boy. I would say medium full, like some should say medium rare.
plus.
So, boys, we got some great feedback on our interview with Steve Saka from PCA. I was very happy with how that interview went. Obviously, we felt great about it at PCA. I think Steve is someone that we could talk to for 12 hours and still feel that there was a lot left to talk about. I found him very intriguing, insightful. And I think for me, and I think what we heard from a lot of the listeners in the email was his openness and his honesty, not
Yeah.
only about his own business, his challenges, his struggles, but also his future. I think that was really interesting as he opened up about, we had just talked to him at PCA about him doing his will and
Don't
the
forget
future.
the Cuban conversation.
And then the Cuban conversation as
incredible.
well really was
Yeah.
pretty eye-opening from someone who's making, Nicaraguan cigars. So we got some great listener feedback. I wanted to read just two of them. Lizard Sean, who we mentioned a lot, sent a really, really nice note. He said, Giz, I just finished the pod. It was a great episode. When I look back, it's pretty amazing to see and hear how your palates have changed since the beginning of the podcast. I'm looking forward to getting a box of these Sin Compromiso Selección number 4s, along with the box of the new Stillwell Star number 22. That's another cigar that Steve launched at PCA this year. It was a great interview, and I love how you merged it into the pod. The quality of Steve's cigars are up there with Padron. Of course, he would never admit that, but I just had one of his other Stillwell Stars the other night, and the burn and construction were perfect. The interview gave dimension to the podcast, and this just took it to another level. I thought it worked great. Thanks so much.
wow.
What a nice email from Lizard
Fantastic
Sean.
email.
And then I had another one from Lizard Seagull, as he calls himself. Every time he signs in emails to us, he always says, as always, Lizard in training. Lizard Seagull.
Is that Idiov or is that another seagull in the world somewhere?
This is Lizard Seagull. And he said, guys, what a fun and educational podcast today.
Yeah, awesome.
So I love
That's awesome.
I love hearing those kind of notes from listeners, and we got a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we'll get some more as time goes on, and we'll go back to
Hope so.
listener feedback. So the other thing I wanted to mention, couple programming notes. So obviously when I record the "Hey Lizards, Gizmo here" thing at the beginning of the episode where we preview the upcoming 2 months
Our
of
love
That's
for
the
premium cigars.
That's the intro, Bam.
Correct.
The
I love
pre-intro thing where we preview the upcoming 2 months of cigars. Obviously, we record that well in advance. And we listed some cigars in there, namely some short smoke special cigars. We had planned to do 2 short smoke specials in a row, doing 2 Cubans and 2 New Worlds back to back, 4 cigars in 2 weeks. Because of the success we had at PCA and the things that are happening now and the balls that are kind of starting to roll down the hill here, we have a lot of momentum. So things have changed a little bit. So we are going to do those short smoke specials at some point, but we're having to push those back a little bit because we've got some really, really great stuff coming up
Just
for our
for the
listeners.
listener,
yeah.
put those into your aging protocol.
Put those cigars in the aging protocol. We will get to them. I promise you that, but they're going to be pushed back a little bit, which is actually the first time we've had to do that on the podcast. And
Yeah.
it's just as a result of the stuff we got done at PCA.
That's all
We,
good.
we really need to do more Lanceros.
And the other thing to note too is that next week we're going to do the Cuban cigar, the Hoyo de Monterrey Double Coronas, and we're going to bring our interview from PCA with SD DuPont CEO Alain Crevet, which was another great interview we did. It was about 30 minutes long.
Fantastic
And,
interview.
that was something that just kind of happened on the floor. We met Alain, and then we sat down with him, and we had a great conversation. So next week, you can look forward to that. I will say this. When you're talking about the CEO of an accessory manufacturer,
A luxury brand.
a luxury brand,
Yeah.
I didn't expect to have the level of interesting conversation that we did with Alain and the camaraderie and the interest in cigars.
He's a total lizard.
Oh,
Total
yeah.
lizard. So
Oh,
we
yeah.
went into that like, let's see how this goes. And we walked out of there with a lot more than that, which
True.
you'll hear next week. So definitely tune into our interview with the CEO of SD DuPont, Alain Crevet, next week on the pod with the Hoyo de Monterrey Double Coronas, which Bam so kindly is providing.
Is that right?
That's what you told us.
He
We
doesn't
love you,
know.
Bam. We love you.
I'm just actually acknowledging that now. Is that actually?
We love you. Yeah, they're fantastic.
No problem. No problem.
We need you to bring 20. We're going to distribute them.
I actually
equally
brought
among
one
the group.
tonight to smoke and see how it previews. We'll see.
I hope you brought 6.
One. Thank you.
Is the Opus Dubai after that or before?
The same night.
What are you going to fleece my collection? What are we doing here?
Why don't you bring both of those
You
next
brought
week,
it up.
Bam, and we'll see what happens.
Sure. My cigars are your cigars.
So we had another listener email.
Can we just cut a clip of that? Bam saying my cigars are yours. I want a button to
Yeah.
press.
That should be on the
Jesus
intro.
Christ.
Yes.
And can you increase the volume because I think that came very soft.
That was intentional.
So we had another great listener email. I'm curious what you guys think about this, and I think it ties to the experience that we're having tonight. Unique cigars that are a little different than we expect. And the question was, typically Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, obviously Cuba, are thought about as the kind of premium areas where tobacco is coming from and rolled. But obviously there's a lot more tobacco out there. Costa Rica, Honduras, even the United States, as we talked about earlier with EP Carrillo. And it's interesting, and I'm curious what your guys are thinking. Obviously, our sponsor now, Fabrica 5, is manufacturing their cigars in Honduras with Honduran tobacco, which I think is as close to Cuban tobacco as I've ever tasted. I'm curious what you guys think and what your experience has been both inside the pod and out with cigars that have tobacco coming from areas that are not Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, and Cuba.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot of experience with that's not Dominican and Nicaraguan. I mean, so a lot of that tobacco does come in blending a lot of other cigars.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've ever smoked like a puro
Honduran puro.
puro
Or a Costa Rican puro.
Yeah. I don't even know if there is one. I
You're
mean,
gonna-
maybe Honduran, yes, but
I think you're going to laugh at me here, but when I first, which is no surprise, when I first started smoking cigars, I did have quite a few Rockies, and Rocky actually he sources.
you can cut off his mic now.
Yeah, he actually sources.
Love you,
a-
Grinder.
he sources a lot from like Costa Rica and Sumatra and various places
And New Jersey.
and New Jersey. So, and I always kind of appreciated them. Even Mexico makes, good leaf as well.
Yeah, Mexican San Andres wrapper is
Oh,
on
yeah.
so many of the
Oh, I
Nicaraguans that we
love those.
smoke.
I love
You know,
the San
we've had
Andres.
great experience with that.
So I think, the New World stuff is great because it encouraged, just the market encourages a lot of these cigar manufacturers and blenders to source from different locations. And they have experience of having their inventory depleted from various Sandinistas or revolutions. So they know how to manage risk and place risk at different areas of the world so that they can still maintain operations. And I think that chaos created this need for different geographies, and I think it's kind of wonderful.
Yeah. Interesting.
I think for me, I probably years ago would have been much more particular or maybe even limited in my willingness to try tobacco from all these different regions that I'm much less familiar with. And I think what I've come to appreciate is it all just comes down to blending. I care far less now where the tobacco comes from as much as I care about who's blending it and kind of what they're doing with that tobacco. I mean, I say that Pledge of Allegiance we've talked about so many times. I'll never forget Gizmo just reading off the different places that all the tobacco came from in that cigar. And I'm sitting
Incredible
there,
strata of locations.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there saying, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like it honestly, hearing it made me skeptical
Of course.
that the cigar was going to be great. And the experience we had with that cigar being so great, it just completely changed my perspective that I'm not sure that, any of us need to or have or want to pursue a puro from any one particular random country. I think there are nuances in flavor that tobacco can deliver when blended the right way in certain types of cigars that we would appreciate that excites me and that I'm glad to see more experimentation happening. Because I honestly, when I think back to years ago when I first started smoking cigars, I don't remember seeing tobacco from nearly as
No.
many
No, I
places
agree.
in blends from like prominent
Mhm.
brands. I mean, even Davidoff gets experimental with some cool stuff.
They do.
I feel like everybody is now doing a lot of this, and I think it's produced some really unique stuff that we've come to appreciate.
I think it reflects the maturity and growth of this hobby of ours as well. Like a lot of a lot of manufacturers have, a particular leaf that is good as a binder, a particular leaf with a very distinct flavor, and they're trying to, expand their kaleidoscope of flavors to offer new different experiences for the consumer. And I think that reflects their creativity and to Senator's point, the blending mastery of these guys.
I think too. We've talked about this new cigar boom, right? And to me, my perception, forgetting volume and sales and numbers and all that, I think the modern cigar boom to me is kind of what Steve Saka touched on a little bit, and what we're seeing with a lot of these manufacturers. If it's Dunbarton with Saka, if it's EP Carrillo, if it's our Fabrica Five and Hamlet Paredes and Rob Ayala blending Honduran tobacco, if it's the CAO who has Brazilian tobacco in there. I think the modern cigar boom is coming down to cigar manufacturers really trying to create a diverse line that talks to as many smokers as possible, especially Cuban smokers who are currently feeling alienated.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is, to me, the perfect cigar boom is people going out and sourcing tobacco from other places and trying new things. And like we're experiencing tonight with a guy who owns a company and is just a blender, and getting to a guy like Steve Saka, who's, as he said, using a process that farmers don't appreciate because they're cutting off a significant piece of the plant to focus the flavor in a certain amount of the tobacco coming off that plant, yielding less because of flavor. Like that's a real interesting and different approach to this thing that we enjoy.
This is very healthy for our industry, right? Meaning this is our hobby. And what's great about it is that the competition is increasing. There's so many new markets which are coming every day. Are really healthy for the industry. I think it's putting pressure on even the traditionalists to go and try and experiment new stuff. Davidoff came up with the new Maduro,
Yeah.
and so it's really interesting where the industry is headed. it's really good for us. So, listeners, open yourself up to the world. Don't care where this tobacco comes from. Try different things.
Yeah.
And, you may receive abundance.
That was beautiful.
It was. Let's end it now.
And I think for as much shit as we've given Habanos for what they did with their pricing and the alienation of so much of their audience, it's kind of coming out of PCA and coming out of a lot of the conversations that we've had and we've set up and are going to be having in the future with Nick Malello from Foundation, who did that amazing presentation on Connecticut tobacco, which blew my mind. The wealth of knowledge that he has, and also the interesting stuff that's coming out of Connecticut that I think is going to, again, enhance the industry. There's a lot of manufacturers that are looking to Connecticut wrapper to make a more mild or medium experience for the American smoker.
Ecuadorian.
And Ecuadorian too.
I mean,
yeah.
I think, climate change is as well. Like, I mean, I don't want to harp on that, but like, that's a good example of like, well, the climate changed a little bit and it's not as abundant, to use that word, to grow Connecticut leaf in the Connecticut River Valley. Maybe there's parallels to different regions as well for that. I don't know, but
I guess ultimately, like, I'm changing my mentality with Habanos from this pissed off, like, you've alienated us. Like, I think the product of that has been for us and a lot of guys in that Cuban cigar culture, it's been an eye-opening experience because we've been forced to look elsewhere. Obviously, we do this every week on the podcast, so we need 52 cigars a year, to make this podcast go. But for us and for our listeners, it's been a real experiment with this new type of tobacco. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
And it's been a huge opportunity for these New World
Sure.
marcas. I mean, when we were at PCA talking to a number of these guys who were saying that for the first time, it's like the floodgates are opening in other global markets that they're now looking at being able to distribute in. Imagine the day that you can go to Europe and get Padron cigars.
Or Asia.
I mean, that's not the case right now, but
No.
fast forward 10, 20 years from now, I will not be at all surprised if you can walk through a shop in London and pick up some Padrones. Like,
Yeah.
they're having these conversations because retailers are frustrated not having
Cuban access.
product to sell their consumers.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So, unlike what happened in the 90s, as we talked about earlier, when Aging Room, prior to Rafael Nadal buying it, it was part of that cigar boom. I guess it was at the tail end of it. That was just a, deluge of shitty cigars.
Mhm.
And most of them failed and the industry suffered for it. Whereas now I think the new entrants to the market are guys like Rafael Nadal, who fell in love with cigars, got really, really passionate about it, and said, I want this to be my life. Obviously, we have taken it in another direction in kind of the media way here. We fell in love with cigars. We enjoy each other's company. We sit down and record each week. But it's kind of driven this more quality focused
Well, I was about
boom,
to say,
I guess.
access to New World cigars that are at an extraordinary level from the point of view of quality. I mean, that's a huge opportunity, not just for us, but worldwide, like Senator said earlier, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, boys, what are you thinking about the Aging Room Nicaragua Quattro in Sonata?
My fingers are going to burn.
yeah, not much left.
All you have to do is, if the listener could see this room, every single lizard is smoking this down to the point that their fingers are almost burning.
Correct.
Yeah, my eyes are burning. There's so much
When
smoke
did you
in
get so
this room.
soft?
So much smoke in this room.
Well, we know why.
No, I think it certainly picked up gradually, very subtly, but gradually over the course of the smoke, in a very good way. Just that slight pepper, and the smoothness has been maintained though,
Yeah.
which that's a wonderful, and the flavors, they didn't really get muddled towards the end. It was still very full flavored, and just overall the experience was wonderful. So I'm grateful for the smoke and the time spent with you guys tonight.
Yeah. It's great. Great cigar.
And the thing I really like, the last quarter inch, I think actually hits medium full. And it's important for me because we've all, I think, agreed that this is a very versatile cigar. You could smoke this at many different points in times. But I was worried when I lit this cigar, could I enjoy this after a meal, after dinner? And the way this finishes, absolutely I could.
Yeah. For me, when I began that final third, from that beginning point to this half-inch mark where I am now, it actually stayed consistent. I didn't see an uptick in body. It still stayed very, very consistent for me.
Me too. I didn't experience any of the pepper that was kind
No,
of touched on a little
no,
bit.
a little bit, but not much at
I didn't
all.
have any of that, and I still found it. I don't know if I would say it's medium full for me.
That stayed medium
where-
for me.
Where it ended
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
I'm curious, at this point, before we get into the ratings, is there any aspect of the cigar at this point now towards the end where do you have any other cigars that you would compare it to? Does it at all compare to the EP Carrillo Allegiance? Is it in line at all with the Pledge of Allegiance from EP Carrillo? Is it in line with any other Nicaraguan that we've ever had? Like, I'm curious, have you guys had any kind of thoughts about what it compares to?
I can't think of another cigar like this. Really,
I think it's closer to the EP Carrillo line than anything else.
yeah, it's closer.
If there's
right.
any
That
similarities.
allegiance is there, but this
Yeah.
is
I
this
think
is different than that.
just the Allegiance, if we were
Yeah.
to pick a cigar, but I don't think the regular Allegiance or the Pledge, I don't think it's anything like either of those cigars. And I still maintain that I think this has done something unique, which is why, like that Allegiance we reviewed at PCA, I think we all felt that there was something unique about that cigar. There wasn't like an immediate, obvious comparison that we would make. And I feel the same way about this cigar, which is, I think, a huge testament to what Nadal has achieved here.
And the development has been very gradual. I think for me, I think it's just smoothly moved into a very nice space for me, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that Rafael Nadal, like when he creates a new line or a new cigar, he kind of does not go after like a certain flavor profile, whether he wants to make it medium or stronger or mild. He kind of, blends the tobacco and let the flavors be, where they may be. He's not like developing like, okay, I want like a more cocoa forward cigar or a spicy cigar or a peppery cigar. So he just kind of blends it and he wants to use the best tobaccos available to him and see what happens.
That's hard to believe because I know they're doing testing along the way.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
they're
he's
capturing-
tweaking. He's
Yeah, of
tweaking
course.
the
And
blend.
you have
as
to.
it-
Yeah,
you
exactly.
do have to. Yeah,
Absolutely. So there's some pursuit of a profile at some
For
time.
sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that.
All right, boys. So before we get to the ratings, put on your roach clips. I have one more listener email I want to read. This is from a French listener, Lizard Matthew,
Hey,
which is very cool.
Go to hand me your roach clip, please.
And Lizard Matthew writes, "Hi, Lizards. I love your podcast, guys. The content you put out, all your reflections about spirits and stogies are a mine of gold. Please keep up the good work. This podcast needs to be known more. I think cigars and spirits need deeper and longer exchanges between individuals to reflect personal tastes and cover the whole subject. Cigars and spirits deserve better than Instagram shorts and 10-minute influencer videos."
Yeah. One of the
Wow.
things
Amen.
I like about us versus others is that oftentimes when you look at a review of a whiskey or a spirit or a cigar, they basically just regurgitate what the marketers tell them.
Mhm.
And we take time to actually go through
Oh, yeah.
how we're experiencing it over the
And
course
it's
of an hour
also
and a half.
typical. They light the cigar. Okay, we're gonna come back to the first third, then the half, and then the final thoughts. It's kind of quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't really go deep into. And there's hardly. I mean, I don't know how many other podcasts are there where there's 5 or 7 guys sitting in a room and just talking about
Correct.
a cigar and a
Correct.
spirit for like almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Not many.
which is cool.
All right, boys, it's time to do the formal liquor rating tonight on the Angel's Envy Kentucky Straight Bourbon, the port finished version of it. Bam Bam, you're up.
So initially, I didn't like it. I was at a 7, but as it's opened up, it's gotten really flavorful, easy to drink. I'm gonna give this an 8.
Okay, Grinder.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I kind of got some floral notes towards the end there too.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, the nose was really pleasant. And I don't like bourbon especially, and this is definitely something I'll drink again. And Senator mentioned that the mixing thing, and it's definitely something forward in their kind of persona, like they want to be a mixing spirit. But I could definitely buy this and sit down on my deck and smoke a cigar and enjoy it. And I would definitely buy a bottle of this. So I'm also, an 8 for me for a bourbon is a high score, and that's my score.
Pagoda.
It's an 8 for me. as opposed to Senator. I think I really like this with ice. I've had this neat a couple of times. For some reason, this just works really well with ice for me. And yeah, it's an 8 for me. Yeah.
Okay, for me, it's a 9 for sure.
All right.
100%.
All right.
I'm very, very happy with this bourbon. I'm glad I drank it neat from the beginning. I'm glad I let it sit and open up. I think the pairing with the cigar is excellent. I would buy it again. I think this is something I would pair only with cigars. It's not a drink that I'm looking to mix or do something else with. I'm very, very happy with it. And I'm shocked with how well it performed with this cigar tonight. I thought it was very, very good. Senator.
I'm with most of the lizards on an 8, a solid 8. I would definitely drink this again. I'm amazed that I would call this a sipping bourbon. I think,
Mhm.
Grinder mentioning sitting out, in his yard and having this with a cigar, I could see myself doing exactly the same thing. I think the price point does factor in a little bit. I think, at 50 something bucks, that's a premium spirit, right? Most 12-year scotches are, start in that 50 something dollar range. And I think it's a shame. I know why. Obviously, they market this as a mixing bourbon because the sad reality is, I mean, most bourbon is mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
The volume of bourbon is heavily in cocktails, at least in the United States, it is. And so I know they must want to really be part of that conversation
Hmm.
to move a lot of volume. But I think that this is not something I would order to mix into a cocktail.
I totally agree.
I think like number one, how smooth and easy drinking this is. You want something a little more robust to hold up to the flavors of a cocktail. So I would pursue probably a richer bourbon, but to enjoy with a cigar, this is one of those few bourbons that I would pick up again, and I think would pair well with the overwhelming majority of cigars, even Cuban cigars. And I think we have a hard time a lot of the time finding a bourbon that we would pair with a Cuban because a lot of them can be
Overwhelming.
higher in proof,
Yeah.
pretty intense in flavor, and can dominate the flavor profile of a Cuban cigar. And I think this is one of those rare bourbons that wouldn't fight a Cuban cigar, would actually complement it. So I'm at a strong 8, would definitely enjoy this again.
Nice.
I do want to say that for me, like when I go to Angel's Envy and I see it on the liquor store, I typically pick up the rye. For some reason, I really enjoy the Angel's Envy rye, and it's been. I think we did review that.
We
I
did, yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And
And I don't think most of us love that rye.
yeah,
No,
but
no.
I've always really, really enjoyed it with a couple of cubes of ice and just like I have that need, not need, but with ice just so that it cools down a bit. It's fantastic. It's a bit sweeter, even though rye is supposed to be less sweet. I just there's something about the rye I really enjoy. But this bourbon's been fantastic. Yeah, an 8. Yeah, fair score.
So, boys, the formal liquor rating on the Angel's Envy Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey Port Finished is an 8.2. I have a question because I think that cigar,
You think it's a low rating?
I think that rating is low.
Oh.
And the reason why is exactly what Senator just said. If we want to factor in price, fine. But for all the positive, I didn't hear anybody say a negative thing about it,
No.
except factoring in maybe ice. Pagoda didn't have the experience. Bam didn't have the experience. Senator did, and then he went to neat. I don't understand. And then when you're saying that it could pair with a Cuban cigar, how do you still land at an 8? Because this
Well-
could be arguably
So I'll
the most
tell you what.
versatile
If I may,
bourbon that we've
2
had.
seconds.
Go ahead.
I don't think I would drink this with any Cuban cigar. Maybe the Maduro one, and that's it.
From
And
Partagas.
yeah, and the E2 because they're fully bodied Cubans. But
Oh, I disagree with that.
I don't know. I feel like this is really well suited to a Dominican or a Honduran cigar. Or
I feel completely
Nicaraguan,
differently.
yeah.
I would absolutely drink this with a Partagas D4, with frankly most of the Partagas line.
some of the parties.
There's a lot of Cuban cigars that I could see
Maybe the Ras.
pairing very well with
Yeah,
this.
the
A
Ramon
Ras
Alonis.
for
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be nice with this.
So I don't really feel that way. I think for me, why the price did factor in between an 8 and a 9, and I can see why Gizmo gave this a 9 because again, I would have given it a 9 if it were maybe $10 cheaper. And the only reason I say that, there's so many great spirits in the 50 something dollar category, and I wouldn't pick this up as often as many of those other 50 something dollar spirits, whether it's a scotch, rum, cognac. There's a lot of other spirits that I would put ahead of this,
Sure.
but I would still happily drink this. I mean, there is a place for it, but I don't see this cracking my regular rotation in the way that many other $50-something spirits that I would give a 9 or even a 10 to are part of my rotation. So for me, that's why I rounded down to the 8 and not the 9, but it's still a fantastic spirit.
Yeah, I'm just surprised again with everything we talked about at an 8.2 for the versatility that we've all experienced tonight and how it paired with a lighter Nicaraguan, despite coming in here, all of us thinking that
it goes back to personal taste, honestly. So I this is a fairly versatile bourbon. I don't think I'd have this. I wouldn't have this. I mean, it because of the sweetness with ice. For me, it'd be great outside on a nice spring or summer day. Fine. But I don't see, like I said, like Senator said, this would not slot in my daily or weekly or even monthly rotation. And price has nothing to do with it because I don't think it's very expensive. Just for me, it just didn't hit all of my notes for me.
I think just typically, like for me, as an average consumer of whiskeys, I think
you're above average, but go ahead.
I do tend to gravitate towards, away from bourbons and more into really scotches or even rum. I think I've developed a taste for rum, which I think you can get so many different types of rums for around the same price or lesser price, which are fantastic with cigars. And at least at this point in time in my life, going through a lot of these different liquors, I think bourbon's just not a natural choice for me. But I'm sure for the people who enjoy bourbon, this could easily be a 9. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely can see your sentiment there for sure. I think for me personally, like I said, bourbon's not something that I especially, and am tuned to. Similar to what Pagoda said, I would rather, reach for a Scotch. I do appreciate the versatility of it. Thinking about it, I probably could have scored it higher on the bourbon rubric for me. But at the end of the day, similar to what some of the other guys are saying, I just don't think I'd do it as frequently as I would with the other spirits. And an 8.2 isn't a bad score. An 8 isn't a bad score. But I can definitely see why you might, you think that it should be higher.
And I think of, even when we travel, right? Like, we go to Vegas or for PCA or some other event, sometimes we will bring spirits that we may not readily find somewhere that we
Correct.
want to enjoy.
Who, us?
And I just think of the stuff that we would, pick up and how this would stack up against that. And I think back to, a recent trip that we took. We brought a Scotch, we
Yep.
brought Balvenie, we brought some rum, we brought some Havana Club, and we brought some cognac. We brought Remy 1738.
It's true.
Do I think that this would crack into that rotation that we would ever bring with us? I don't.
No.
That's fair.
And that's where, for me, like the 9s and 10s are things that I enjoy so much. I would want to bring somewhere that I can't get that. And I don't feel as passionately about this spirit, but that takes nothing away from it in the sense that I'm glad I tried this, because if I'm at an airport, I never would have picked this up. And now I would happily get an Angel's Envy bourbon.
Or you're,
and I'd be satisfied.
you're at a cigar bar, in Louisville, Kentucky,
Right.
and you're having a cigar that you purchased at the shop next door.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be one of the top choices.
And honestly,
that's my point.
Like I go to a lot of cigar parties in town where I live. So if they have a bottle of Glenlivet and they have a bottle of this, I may gravitate more toward this that day.
How about taking us along with you sometime?
All right, boys, it's time to do the formal lizard
Will
rating
do.
on the Aging Room Nicaragua Quattro Sonata in Maestro. Rooster, you're up.
So I really like the cigar. I mean, I would definitely pursue a box or two of this one and the other one, actually. I mean, I'm surprised that I don't have any of these. I would love to get some of the drawer was wide open. The construction was phenomenal. The room was full of smoke, and I think all of us enjoyed the cigar. I mean, we smoked it all the way down to the nub. So my rating on this, I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay, Senator.
I was hoping that I wasn't next. I'm debating between a 9 and a 10.
Oh.
Wow.
Same here, by the way.
All right, before you go.
The rare optimist tonight.
Well, if Rooster gives it a 9, I think we all should give it a 10.
Pagoda now. Just watch out if he tries to change his rating. Okay, Senator, go ahead.
So, if only thing missing on this cigar was a pigtail, it would be a 10.
You're all about the optics.
I have to do it. I'm going to give it a 10.
Wow.
Whoa!
Awesome.
So loud. The thing is, there's nothing that I can find wrong with this cigar. I think it is truly one of the best constructed Nicaraguan cigars I've ever had. It looks beautiful. The draw is flawless. The combustion is fantastic. It checks all the boxes before you even light the cigar. And then the fact that you light the cigar, and I don't know that I've ever had a Nicaraguan cigar that I would describe as a 3-act play in the way that I would this cigar. I mean, truly, each third delivered something different.
It's true. I could see this as a 3-act play, honestly.
And the price point.
12
Well,
bucks.
that's where I was going to go
12.
next.
Yeah.
$12 is
Yowza.
such a tremendous value for
Yeah.
this. So I just think, and the other thing, at $12, I wouldn't just describe this as an enjoyable cigar or a good cigar. It's a refined cigar. It's a complex cigar. These are words that normally you would only use to describe a cigar that usually commands a higher price point to get that experience. At $12 to be able to say that confidently, I have to give it a 10. I think they've hit everything that they could have possibly sought to deliver in that cigar. I would definitely buy a box of these. I will after this. And I'm already looking forward to the next one I smoke.
Wow.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Me too.
So I'm at a 9. Now, the reason why I think everything you just said is completely valid, Senator. For me, the reason why I didn't go 10 is as I think about where this would slot in for me, I don't think that this is going to enter a regular rotation, a daily rotation for me. I don't see it substituting in where I've kind of slot other, Nicaraguan cigars or Dominican cigars, kind of following a Cuban. I don't see it replacing anything. And I think in my brain, the price is great. There's no question about that at $12. But in my brain, when I'm thinking 10, it's something that's going to immediately and permanently be in my rotation, and it's going to take a lot for it to get knocked out. So for everything you said, you're 100% right, Senator. I agree with everything you said. I think it's a brilliant cigar. I think Rafael Nadal knocked it out of the park on this. I think it's brilliant.
Yes, he did.
But it's not to the point where I'm going to substitute this in my rotation. Very happy I have a box. I might smoke 2 or 3 of these a month. But this is not going to be something that's an everyday cigar for me. So that's why it's a 9. I think it's brilliant. I think it's excellent. And I think every listener out there, Cuban or New World, is really, really going to enjoy this cigar. There's no question about it.
Can I add one thing? You bring up an interesting point around where you would slot this in, how it would or wouldn't crack your rotation. For me, the utility is, and I'll be very honest, at this point, I'm certainly smoking more Cuban cigars than I ever have in my life. And because of that, it has definitely impacted how much I'm looking for as full flavored an experience as you get from a lot of Nicaraguans, even Padrones.
Wow.
And for me, the brilliance of this cigar in terms of where I would slot this in regularly, it's after I've smoked a couple of Cuban cigars and before I'm going to light a Padrone.
So it's your second to last cigar, let's call it.
It's that transition
It's a nice
into
transition.
a full-bodied cigar.
It's a good concept.
And
I like it.
The other place for it is honestly, sometimes, let's say I've had 3 or 4 Cuban cigars and I'm looking at that full-bodied Nicaraguan. I'm saying, do I really want this much strength or flavor at that point? And sometimes the answer is no, and I don't have anything else on me. And so I light it and it's still satisfying, but it's a little much for what I'm looking for. This would close out the night for me after several Cuban cigars,
Yeah, it's a good
not
point.
wanting to go all the way full.
It won't overwhelm you.
And that would just satisfy me at the right level to close out my night. So those are kind of the 2 scenarios that I do see this regularly slotting in for me personally.
I like
So
it.
Senator just said that this is a Padrone killer in his rotation. You heard that?
I heard that.
All right, we're going to tell George Padrone that.
Could we record that?
We're gonna lock that down.
I'll send you photos.
I want that when I want to hit a button and just press that whenever I want.
I'll send you photos while I'm having caviar with Rafael.
He's angling.
That's what we're doing
Pagoda, he's angled
Correct.
his rating
here. Correct.
to get in good graces with Raphael
There
to get
we
on the
go.
Instagram.
No, but
very
you know,
diabolical.
very calculated. Sam.
Correct.
But who knows? Raphael might have changed the way he actually lives after listening to our pod with all these caviars, and he may be actually following you.
Oh, he's welcome. He's welcome to enjoy caviar with me anytime.
Oh.
So I got a question. I know we have a bunch of other ratings to do. I have a question for you, serious question. Based on what you just said about you're smoking more Cuban cigars than you ever have. Obviously, you just said you're not smoking as many Padrones or maybe full cigars as you were in the past. Do you find that your palate, given the travel, how many Cuban cigars, we've been in Cuba a lot, do you find that your palate has adjusted in a way or that you're leaning more toward mild or medium cigars? What is changing here?
Yeah, so I don't think my palate has changed, is leaning a different direction. I just think that I've become more sensitive to full-bodied cigars than I was before. And I say that because I crazily have told the story, obviously. I've smoked 4 Padron 80s back to back in a sitting and was completely unfazed. If I were to do that now, that would just be an overpowering amount of flavor in a session to have 4 of those back to back. It's not something I would pursue, where that was normal at one time. You know, when Bam Bam was the one when he met me, years ago at our lounge, do you only smoke Padron? That was
Yeah.
one of the first things he said to me.
It's true.
And that was because a full-bodied cigar like that was really all I was pursuing. And because now I'm smoking so many firmly medium Cuban cigars, I'm more sensitive now when I'm having that full-bodied cigar where I just want that as the closer. I just want that as the build in flavor, but I'm not looking for that all the time in the way that I was before. So I just think because of that, a cigar like this, when I'm smoking 4 Cuban cigars, and I'm starting to get sensitive then to a real full experience, this would slot in there. Now, if I'm having 1 or 2 Cubans, I'll light a Davidoff, then I'll light a Padron. That's perfect. But I think for me, it's just more because my range has expanded, I'm more conscious and more sensitive to when I'm having that full-bodied experience in a way that I was so desensitized to it before.
Interesting.
I think that happens. I think Steve talked about that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
And I think Pagoda most recently has, illustrated so many times that his palate, not in line with what Senator's saying as far as changing goes, but, it has changed quite a bit. And I think
Quite a bit, yeah.
you get towards that like brick wall and then you have to start walking back, so I was, that's why I was asking, as I was curious how much of that walking back your palate has done, especially when you're
to that
smoking
conversation.
multiple Cubans.
I think every one of us in some way has gone through this.
Of course.
I mean, I remember, Bam used to smoke the Family Reserve, and I would
almost exclusively.
right, and I'd sing the praise of the Exclusivo, and I'm like, this is just
Yeah.
a smoother delivery of
It-
that. If you're
it
going to
is.
smoke a lot in a night,
That's true.
and I think now you smoke far less Family Reserve than you ever did before.
I haven't smoked a Family Reserve in many years.
I don't think I've ever seen you with a Family Reserve.
Yeah,
Other
no.
than when we had it,
yeah, and honestly, because of the Cuban journey that we've taken, that's where I'm firmly in. And when we get a cigar like this tonight, this is a really unique transitional cigar that you can place almost anywhere.
But if you're only gonna have like one cigar, in a
but you're
day,
the
like,
only
end
one
the
who
night-
only smokes one cigar.
Yeah,
but
so hold on.
sometimes-
So when Gizmo mentioned we hit that brick wall, Rooster tears that down with a sledgehammer. Okay.
No, but if you're just gonna have one cigar, sometimes after dinner, I want to have one cigar and then go to bed.
I don't
Yeah.
know
I
what
want
that's
I
like.
want a full cigar.
I don't either.
Then I would have a Family Reserve.
I
and
don't-
just end the night.
So I don't disagree with him. If I'm having one, I would like that to be a full flavored experience. I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like
But it's rare that I just have one in a sit.
Exactly.
For me, honestly.
You know how many times even we're at the lounge and we're like, let's just have one more cigar.
and it
And
ends
then we
up
all
being
have one
3.
more.
We all have
Let's
3.
have one
Yeah.
more cigar. I mean, we just don't do that. You're the
No.
only one that just smokes 1 or 2. I
You have
can't do
a
that.
lot of patience.
You're an outlier, Rooster. All right, Pagoda, your rating on the aging room Nicaraguan
Well,
Quattro.
Just considering this conversation, I must say I've evolved. I've really evolved. No, I do find my palate actually. I've really started enjoying like medium and even mild and a lot of Cubans, and I'm seeking different things at different points in time. And what's really interesting about this cigar, so for me, I've been debating between a 9 and 10. But considering the 80-20 principle, where most of you have 80% Cuban and 20% New Worlds, I have the other way around. I have 80% New Worlds and 20% Cubans.
Do it, Pagoda.
And so for me, it really slots really well. And considering the price point, hey, I'm Indian. $12 goes, a long way. And I think it's a 10. It's a 10.
Wow.
There
Thank
we
you,
go.
Senator. You
Wow.
There we go.
motivated me to give that score. But yeah, overall, I do think that cigar smoking is just a journey. And, it's not just one way up or one way down. You go through these periods where you'll seek stronger cigars and full flavored and full bodied cigars. And the times you're going to seek something milder and, more flavorful and medium bodied cigars. And in this journey where I am at this point in time, I think the cigar would really slot very well. And it's a 10 for me.
Grinder.
Um, I think when I smoked the Sin Compromiso, I was kind of shocked, and I wasn't expecting much, and afterwards I was like, wow, that was an amazing cigar. I had a similar feeling with this cigar where I didn't know what was around the corner, and there was something very unique about it, and that kind of immediately in my book puts it on a higher level, in the 9 or 10 range. So when I think about 10s, I think about cigars that I can't find anywhere else that are, check all the boxes, smooth delivery, the burn is great, the aroma is fantastic, the combustion, everything was really phenomenal. But when I compare it, I don't know what I was trying to reflect on what I gave this Sin Compromiso. I don't know if I gave it a 9 or a 10.
Does it matter?
It does. I think they're comparable for what I'd reach for, and for the experience I had. So in this case, I'd probably give this a 10.
Wow.
Look at that. Look at
My
that.
I'll tell you,
Lord.
Rooster
Wow.
a 9.
When
My
I
Lord.
and the thing that I liked about the cigar is that there were certain elements that I was expecting it to be monolithic or have a continuous kind of burn throughout, and it just didn't. It slowly changed, and I literally burned my finger. I had to put it down.
Yeah, same here.
I think we all burned
and
it
I've
to the
never
nub.
I've never had an experience where I did take it down that far and it was still something different. It was still like there was still if you compare the beginning draw to the end draw, there's a great distance, but it was so gradual that I just kind of appreciated that journey. So yeah, it's a 10 for me. And the price, come on, it's similar to these other new worlds for smoking. It's really enlightening. And yeah, this is another box that I'll immediately buy.
It's cheaper than a beer in New York City, by the way.
And it takes longer
If you're
to
buying
enjoy
14 of them, that's a problem.
That's a whole box.
Correct.
All right, Bam Bam.
I'm firmly at a 9 here. I think I'm in lockstep with what Gizmo said. I don't know how often I would have this cigar. Although, as I mentioned earlier, I stand firmly in the fact that this is a fantastic transitional cigar. It could slot in almost anywhere. I just don't know how often I would reach for it with a lot of the other cigars that we have access to. So I'm at a 9.
I was thinking about this. This is such a great cigar. We're approaching the summer season. We're going to be golfing. This, because of its combustion.
Oh, this is a
we've talked
great
about
outdoor
exclusive
cigar.
cigars.
Great outdoor
This could be
cigar.
a really good outdoor cigar
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. It's
Fantastic.
robust. It'll
Yeah,
hold
yeah.
up. Yeah.
I think there are a lot of cigars that I've given 10s for that I have a standard rotation for, and it really is like right up my alley. And this is just very different, and I don't know how much I'm going to reach for it over, let's say, I'm really, really smoking a lot of late hours right now. That's basically, I'm smoking a lot of those.
We're just a couple of years late, but hey.
Yeah, a couple of years late. Yeah. And the I don't know if it's going to be a displacer for anything like that, but because of how unique it was, and because there's these flavors that I just can't get, I've never had experienced anywhere else. Yeah, it's in its own category.
You don't give out a lot of 10s.
I don't.
He does not.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at your
Neither does the
ratings-
young man to his right.
Mr. Senator.
I'm feeling vindicated. If it's a 10 for
No, it
Grinder,
is. I'll tell you, I was between a 9 and 10 because, you go through this process when you're really evaluating a cigar. How often are you going to reach out? But like I think we were in Panama when I smoked, I said, this was a pleasant cigar. And
Yeah.
what a great delight. And I think we talked about it. I'm surprised that this was really good today.
One thing regarding the rating, like a 10 overall in this room, I don't think it's a perfect cigar for it to have a 10.0 across the spectrum of all of us. I think the composite rating is going to be very, very fair and accurate.
And
Fair
bam,
enough.
that composite rating, the formal lizard rating tonight on the Aging Room Nicaragua Quattro Sonata in Maestro is a 9.5.
Dude,
Wow.
that is a perfect
That's a perfect score.
Perfect.
For a $12 cigar, you can't complain.
Perfect cigar.
I think that's a great composite.
I think
yeah. Oh, yeah.
think it's the most complex $12 cigar I've smoked. Period.
100%.
I agree with you on that.
100% agreed.
So, boys, let's talk about the other cigar and bourbon that we did in these lines. On episode 35, we did the Aging Room Quattro Nicaragua in Espressivo. That got an 8.8. So this scored 7 points higher than that. And then on episode 41, we did the Angel's Envy Rye, the Pagoda referenced, and that got a 7.5. So
Oh, wow.
tonight's
Yeah.
bourbon scored 7 points higher than that as well.
All right.
Consistency.
We should do the torpedo with the orange label. The
Yeah, we
Maestro.
should line that up for the future
Yeah.
here. I mean, I'm very, very impressed, and I'm curious where Raphael and Aging Room is going to go in the future, because to me, he's trending up.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, given the unique model of he doesn't really have regular production cigars, at least my perspective of how he's done things. He keeps iterating and he keeps releasing new things. Obviously, he's doing contract work with these manufacturers. I don't know if this is going to be a cigar that sticks around for 3 years
Oh,
or
we hope so.
or 10, or if it's going to be here and gone and something new is going to come. So
Mm.
I'm really interested to see where this is going to go for him and how his blending and his palate are going to align with ours in the future. It's
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Do we know how many sticks he sells annually?
I do not know the answer.
I wonder how substantial his business is.
Yeah, I haven't seen any info on that.
That's a hard figure to come by.
Yeah,
maybe.
but Asian rib is omnipresent, meaning most stores
And they're
will
so
have it.
everywhere. That's true. Yeah.
If you look at the cigars that Altadis distributes, though, there's not a lot of shining stars. And this is
This is
Mm.
definitely
yeah,
on the higher end of their
correct.
Yeah.
portfolio.
Yeah.
All right, boys, a great night tonight on the Angel's Envy Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey Port Finished. We had an 8.2. And on the cigar, the Aging Room Nicaraguan Quattro in Sonata Maestro got a 9.5.
Excellent.
I mean, that doesn't happen very often.
No,
around
it does
here.
not.
A 95?
Incredible.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
All right, boys, good being with you. We'll see everybody next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.